Hey everybody, it's your quick step for this week, and yeah, 420, well at least when I recorded this, happy 423? Can we make that a thing? So, there's a lot of stuff in the news about marijuana legalization today for obvious reasons. Chuck Schumer actually just tried to propose a law in the Congress in the United States to try and federally decriminalize marijuana, which is something that has been an ongoing battle in the United States, as there's multiple states that are dealing with different levels of decriminalization and full-on legalization. And it's a difficult thing to talk about because in the US, you have a substance that is flat out legal for any, adult to use in several parts of the country, and then is illegal to the point of you can do significant amounts of prison time in other states. And these are supposed to be states where things can move between each other. It's also federally illegal still, which means that in the United States there are states where marijuana is legal in the state but not in the country, which does mean that you can be harassed by the FBI but not the police. It also means that for those legal marijuana businesses, a lot of banks will not let people legally deal with the profits from said business, like putting them in a bank. A lot of marijuana businesses have to carry a lot of cash. And on top of that, it's very hard to get loans and to, build those businesses that they want to make. Here in Canada, we're poised to have full legalization of marijuana for the 1st of July this year. It's the one campaign promise that Justin Trudeau is actually following through with. Well, he did say that he was going to build pipelines, and he certainly is doing that. But for something that seems quite like an obvious solution, most people seem to think, at least the majority of people in most countries seem to understand that marijuana is not as lethal a substance as other legal substances, and everyone seems to think that, one day marijuana is just going to be legal everywhere, just it's a matter of time. But it seems to be moving at a slow pace, and so I'm going to figure out why that is. So I found 3 main reasons why marijuana legalization is being slowed in various formats. 2 are obvious, 1 less obvious. The first is the olds. Baby boomers especially, and people older than baby boomers, have been raised in a context where reefer madness and the baby boomer addiction to being extremely hypocritical has led to a lot of older people having extreme anti-marijuana views. The propaganda that was pushed out when marijuana was basically a metaphor for a way to arrest black people has had a pretty heavy impact. The war on drugs in the United States has done quite a number on people, but even here in Canada, with marijuana becoming legalized, a lot of older and well-paid people are writing op-eds about how this is going to ruin everything, and we keep having to pass more and more laws to make it harder to use marijuana once it's legal. One of the laws involved you being able to grow 3 plants, but they cannot be any taller than 1 meter. So, they're trying to do anything they can to make the old people feel less scared. And there is a racist aspect to this. Marijuana was made illegal in the 30s, and it was mostly done as a movement because Mexicans and black people were using it, at least in America. But the rest of the world sort of got on board around the same time, and for similar reasons. The white people drug of choice, booze, was also made illegal for a while, if you recall correctly, but white people liked it too much, so it got re-legalized very quickly. And in some places like Europe and in Quebec, it was never illegalized at all. Illegalized, is that a word? Another thing that this generation seems to have been raised with, especially because of the war on drugs era rhetoric, is they see medical issues as criminal issues. Drug use and drug abuse and drug addiction are medical problems. They're psychiatric and biological dependencies that need to be addressed through therapy, but many times they're seen as personal failings and as criminal elements that need to be locked up and put in prison. Hence why America has a full 1% of its population in prison and has the largest prison population on Earth. Legalizing marijuana would go a long way towards reducing that number, but that would be a logical thing. And that kind of brings me to the next point, which is that one of the big things stopping marijuana legalization in many countries Canada, even like the people pushing back on marijuana legalization in Canada, are moneyed interests. For example, in the United States, there are private prisons. There are prisons run by corporations. Prisons love prisoners, and they often pay off politicians to have harsher sentences for things so that there's more prisoners, so that they can make more money. So they actually lobby to increase the prison population, and legalizing marijuana would decrease a lot of prisoners. And so there's a lot of moneyed interest to make sure that marijuana is not legalized in order to keep the prison population up. That's terrifying, and it's also, in some ways, legalized slavery. Just read the new Jim Crow. There's also an interesting one in the tobacco lobby. Tobacco companies are not involved in the marijuana trade, at least not yet, and they do not want the legal competition to their product. So they have put a lot of money into making sure that marijuana is kept illegal. And so many people who seem to have this hardline justice angle to their marijuana criminalization record tend to be taking a lot of money from one of these two interests. And then there's one that's a little less obvious. So the case that I've been mentioning a few times, I've been kind of going back and forth in a kind of confusing way, which happens a lot with me because I'm a Canadian citizen who lives in Canada but has master's degrees in American cultural studies and U.S. history. So I often have a weird frame of reference for things. But one of the things coming up, and trust me, people like Vox are trying to use it as their argument for why they're against marijuana legalization, is international law. Creeps up in a few places. For example, the European Union has drastic limits on what the countries that have decriminalized drugs in their union can do. Specifically with the Netherlands, with, the whole coffee shop thing, and Portugal, which decriminalized all drugs. A lot of people, especially France, have been complaining about the Netherlands and their lax marijuana laws for a long time. And there are international treaties run by the United Nations to try and curb the drug trade. Marijuana is involved in these treaties, and Canada is a member of them. If they wanted to withdraw from the treaty, they would have had to have filled it out by last year, around July of last year. And they didn't. And so Canada is going to legalize marijuana. It's on the books. It looks like it's going to happen, but they're going to do it in violation of international law, which I think is awesome. I don't really like Canada most of the time, but this is a pretty cool thing to do, to violate international law to increase civil liberties in their own country. I think that's, fighting the international power in a way. But honestly, I don't know what's going to happen. Canada's going to legalize marijuana. We're going to be the second country to do it after Uruguay. So I would be interested to see how the world reacts when marijuana all of a sudden becomes legal in Canada in a few months. I also have planned to release around that time a longer and more detailed history of marijuana. Nothing like this, not going to be a quick, a full step back video on marijuana, the history that goes back thousands of years. I think it'll be a really fun video. You guys should get hyped for that. Probably comes out June 28th. So, marijuana, a history, to kind of mark the occasion. So to wrap up, marijuana legalization does look like a thing that is coming, one way or another. If it's not the government that's running right now, it's going to be the one that rules later or something. Somebody's going to run on it and someone's going to get it passed in most countries. But it's going to be a slow process because there's a lot of international and institutional things put in place to make it slow and painful, because we militarized the war on drugs so heavily in the last 40 years that even with us trying to move past it, it's going to be hard to unwrite all those rules. Not to mention, we are still a world run by baby boomers who have all the money and all the votes, and so they basically dictate terms to everybody else. Anyways, I know this was a short video. I have a bit of a migraine today, so I haven't been all that productive, but you guys, if you liked this video, or if there's a favorite step back video on my channel that you really think should have more attention than it has, Step Back struggles with getting the word out there. So word of mouth would really, really help. So if there is a favorite Step Back video, maybe this one, maybe another one, I would really hope that you take it, show it to your friends, show it to anybody who you think might be interested, maybe put it on your favorite subreddit, something like that, because Step Back grows through word of mouth, and I could really use that. I'm trying to slowly move Step Back towards a more sustainable business model. At the moment, it's getting there, but you guys can definitely help make this more of a thing, and that comes with more content and better content as a result for you guys. So I'm not just asking for a selfish favor. It's a bit of a selfish favor, but I'm hoping that, I help you, you help me. All right? Anyways, have a great week. I'll see you on Thursday. Bye!